You ready?
Yeah. Yes, you're so right.
I know it's gonna be so hard. Hello and welcome to Among the Brine, where the Utah Historical Society brings Utah history and culture to the surface. Today we have a very special guest, director of the Springville Museum of Art. It's Emily Larsen, everyone. Let's bring her out.
Yay!
Oh no!
Try not to snort laugh into my microphone. Just a little bit of a sludge spot. But that's one of the great things about being out here.
Emily, it's so great to have you.
It's so great to be here.
So, first and foremost, we just want to start with the museum. So you have been the director of the Springville Museum of Art for how long?
I have been the director for 2 years.
But you have worked there perhaps all your life.
What feels like most of my life. I've worked there full-time 11 years, and then I first started volunteering there. I should have this memorized. I keep trying to make it shorter and think 2008 is earlier, but I think it was 17 years. Is that right?
Wow.
17 years ago.
That
It was
sounds right.
2008.
Yeah.
Was when I maybe first started volunteering.
It's amazing. And the museum itself is like such a gem for the state of Utah, and like just a really unique type of museum, I think, just generally.
Around the turn of the century in Springville, Utah, this small farming community, rural community, there was a group of people who really thought that students especially should have access to original works of art. And so they got together, they called themselves the Springville Art Movement. They got two really pretty famous artists with ties to Springville, John Haille and Cyrus Dallin, to each donate a work of art to the local school kids. And that kind of just snowballed. The kids kept collecting art, the community kept supporting the arts, and by the 1920s they wanted to do something bigger and more exciting with and collect more art, so they started hosting this national art exhibit and inviting artists from all over the country to send their artworks to Springville High School. And the artists did it, and that's kind of the craziest part. Like, famous artists that you would have heard of, Edward Hopper, Walt Disney, Norman Rockwell, all sent artworks to Springville High School students to hang in their annual exhibit. And by the 1930s, this had become so popular and they'd become so well known for their art, and they had this vision of having a world-class kind of art building and art gallery for their high school, that with some WPA funds they built the museum. And that all of that still drives what we do today. We do a lot of art for youth programs, and we're a really community-centered art museum that is unlike any other museum you've been to. So if you haven't been, you've got to come.
Yeah, and ask about the salon.
I was going to ask about the salon. So, the salon. Can you tell us about the Spring Salon and its importance to Utah's art history?
Yeah, so that was the show that the high school students started in the 1920s, the Spring Salon. We're getting ready for it. This year in 2025 will be the 101st annual Spring Salon. It started in 1922. There was a couple years they didn't do it during the war, and now it's one of the biggest juried art competitions in Utah and one of the most prestigious. So we get usually about 1,000 entries from different artists. They bring them in person. It's juried in person, which is also unusual for art shows these days. And then we hang usually around 250, and it's some of the best of Utah art.
How can folks submit to that then, and then how is it judged to narrow down what you're showing?
Yeah, so it's an open call to any artist that lives in Utah or has lived in Utah in the past, and they just have to submit the paperwork, bring their artwork to the museum to be juried before the deadline. And the artwork has to be made in the last 3 years and can't be bigger than 11 feet. So it's pretty broad. And then we hire different jurors each year, professional artists and curators and people who know about art, to jury it down, and they choose the final selection.
So Emily, I know you're an artist yourself. You do collage work, right?
True, yes.
Can you tell us more about what inspires you to create?
Ooh. You know, it is kind of an art historian way to do art, is to use all images other people make and repurpose them and put them in new context. It's actually a lot like curatorial work, I think, because you're taking images you find and making new connections between them. And then sometimes I'm adding paint and drawing and texture to create new relationships between the images. But a lot of what inspires me is just trying to kind of make sense of my own brain and the world, and kind of put some of those things where you can't put it into words on paper.
That's probably true for most artists, right? Like
think
that's kind
so.
of what their process is in so many ways. So a lot of people don't know, but the Springville Art Museum has a really large Soviet realism collection.
Yes.
And I'm curious why.
Yeah, it's a great question. We do have one of the largest collections of Soviet art in the United States, I think, and really the answer is in the 90s, our former director and a lot of Utahns got really interested in collecting this art. They were going over there for business reasons and for other reasons after the Soviet Union fell, and seeing what the artists were creating and kind of falling in love with this art tradition that really does champion realism in a really unique way. So they started collecting it, and different collectors in Utah, and then our former director and the board thought it was a good thing for the Springville Museum of Art to collect, and so we have it, and it has become a really important tradition to Utah art, not just to have it because it does share this incredibly interesting time in history and place in history. So there's that historical element where the artworks are so historically and culturally interesting objects, but they've become these training tools for a lot of Utah artists who are working in realism and representational art, where they'll come do studies from them. And the way that the Soviet Union artists painted it was one of the only schools in the 20th century that continued to champion realism. And so people who are interested in that more representational art, just technically, they learn a lot from the way that these Russian and other Eastern European artists were painting, and just seeing kind of that process in the canvas has become a tool that's influenced contemporary Utah artists who paint in representational styles.
We're gonna have a brief interruption to play a bonus content game. This game is called Mona Lisa's Smile. And what's gonna happen here is each of us will have the chance to give our best Mona Lisa smile to the camera, and then the audience will judge in the comments who had the best Mona Lisa smile. And I think Tim should go first.
Okay.
And you just let us know when you're done.
Oh, don't interrupt my Mona Lisa smile.
I'm trying to think, didn't she kind of have like that?
I don't know if I can do that.
Folks at home, comment down below who you think you would mistake for the Mona Lisa if you passed us in a hallway. Do you have a favorite 19th century Utah artist? And if so, who is it?
I have so many. One of my favorites I'm actually wearing on my t-shirt is a sculpture by Cyrus Dallin, who is one of the founding artists of the Springville Museum of Art. And he is really cool. He grew up in Springville, and then he wanted to be a sculptor, so he moved out to Boston when he was 17 or 18, and then became this kind of worldwide known monument sculptor. So you can see he won the commission for the Paul Revere sculpture that's on the Freedom Trail. He did sculptures all over Boston, and they're kind of all over the country. So he's a really cool figure.
This game is called Stump the Director. Stump the Director. Haille is going to show you images of paintings from your collection, and you get to tell us the name of the artist if you can, and anything else about the artist that you'd like to tell us. You don't have to name the name of the painting.
But I get an extra point if I can.
For sure. Okay.
Number 1.
That is by Gilmore Scott, who's an awesome Dene artist, lives down near the Four Corners, and uses a lot of really cool geometric symbolism and colors. And this picture, you can't even see how cool bright the colors are in person.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2.
That is Edie Roberson, Channel 3, a trompe-l'oeil painting, which is a fancy French word for fool the eye. So it's supposed to look real, and it's supposed to look like a bulletin board.
2 for 2.
Okay.
This is A.D. Shaw, Ego Self-Portrait. A.D. Shaw, also a great living artist, lives out in Vernal, Utah. And this is him. He's very hilarious. A lot of his paintings have these inside jokes, and you can see it's him painting a cartoon version of himself in his studio as his self-portrait. And then there's the photorealistic one on the side, too.
Okay,
Ready?
3 for 3.
Okay.
This is a Florence Ware painting of her and Ted Wasmer painting I don't know where they're painting, but they're out in plein air. It's a very small painting. And Florence Ware, such a cool artist. She and Alice Merrill Horn, who a lot of people know a lot about Alice Merrill Horn, but in kind of the 40s, 30s and 40s, as Alice Merrill Horne was getting a little bit older, Florence Ware was kind of her sidekick, and they were running the art world together, the clubs, the galleries, and things. So
that's cool.
She's really, and she did the murals at Kingsbury Hall. So if you've ever gone to Kingsbury Hall, you've seen Florence Ware's work. Okay.
And on
Fingers
a high
crossed. I know. Oh, that's a self-portrait of John Haffen, one of our founding artists, and
note.
is it a self-portrait or is it by someone else? It's a portrait of John Haffen.
She might be stumped.
Oh, did we stump the director?
You maybe stumped me.
Last name Young.
Mahan Rai Young. And John Haffen's awesome. We already talked about him a little bit, but he was one of the founding artists of the Springville Museum of Art. So Cyrus Dallin and John Haffen gave those gifts in 1903 to the school kids. And one of the things John Haffen is known for is he was one of the art missionaries who was sent by the LDS Church in the 1890s to go to Paris to learn how to paint so they could come back and paint murals for the Salt Lake Temple.
Really interesting story.
Yeah.
And you may or may not be doing something with John Haffen in the future.
That's true. What a great plug. And look at you guys knowing so much about our program. So if you want to learn more about John Haffen, we're hosting a giant retrospective of his work. It will open this August and be open for a year, and it's coinciding with our former director, Dr. Vern G. Swanson, and Angela Swanson-Jones have written a great biography of John Haffen that will be coming out in the fall too. So if you're an Utah art history nerd, you'll want to come see the show and you'll want to read the book.
If
Can't
you
wait.
were to lead an Ocean's 11 style heist of an art museum, who would you select to put on your team, dead or alive?
Wow. First off, I'm against art heists.
Is there anyone from the Utah Museum community?
Oh, yeah,
That I would put on my art heist.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, sneaky, or just like technically skilled. Well, you too, for sure, because now you're in on, I'm doing a heist.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think Megan Van Frank has probably been in every museum in Utah, so we can definitely use her, and she's very strategic.
In a quick lightning round, can you please name 7 different art movements or styles throughout history? Go.
Abstract Expressionism, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Northern Renaissance, High Renaissance. We could name all the different Renaissances. And we could, minimalism, Conceptualism, Post-Conceptualism.
She has done it.
There's a lot of isms.
Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been wonderful. For Haille VanPatten, I am Tim Glenn, and this has been Among the Brine, where the Utah Historical Society brings Utah's history, art, and culture to the surface. Catch us next time on Great Salt Lake Public Access, Wednesdays and Thursdays at 3 and Saturdays at 4. See ya.